guys, and welcome to or back to the Paws in Pursuit podcast with your host, Summer Clark. So today I'm going to be having a super exciting conversation with Neil Ellis, all about the development of IconiX, which is Neil's very own show that he runs. So without further ado, let's get into the conversation. Before we actually do the first question, do you want to introduce yourself? Most people probably know, but for anyone who doesn't know, who are you, what you do, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm Neil. Hi, I'm Neil Ellis, director of IconiX agility shows. I am a international agility judge of, internationally 5 years, and judging in the UK for nearly 14 years now, wow. As well as teaching people. I am also a qualified nurse, but I haven't really done much of that in the last 12 months because my schedule's been quite busy.
Yeah.
But yes, trying to have a lot of eggs in a lot of baskets.
Yeah.
And keeping myself very busy.
Did you sort of do less of the nursing to pursue IconiX more then in the agility side of it?
Exactly, yeah. So when teaching and travelling became a little bit, I had more opportunities to do both those things. I dropped my nursing hours to 2 days a week, and then supplemented that with travelling or teaching. And it's a real shame. It's probably another conversation for another day. But yeah. I was able to make more out of nursing, more out of teaching than I was nursing.
Oh wow! Okay.
And yeah, I think I had to do what was best for my work-life balance and what I wanted to pursue long term in my life and my career. So,
yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
I've now totally dropped out of my contracted work, and I just work as and when.
Suppose you got to take those leaps at some point, haven't you? But
you have, and looking back, it's kind of surreal that I did just take a leap of faith, really, because I have Elle and I are married. We've got a mortgage together. It's not something you can. It took a little bit of thinking and planning, and but thankfully it's paying off. So
yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Right, so the first question is, whose idea was it to hold a show at night? So this is on about the night show. And what made you want to go ahead with this idea?
Okay, so
totally
back in 2017, I think, 2018, I think, I went to Luxembourg because they have a by night competition. So I judged out there for 3 days. Mm-hmm. And anyway, we were, our group of friends, when I got back to the UK later on in the year, our friendship group and I, we were all out for dinner at Pizza Express, and one of our friends, Lucy, just said, "Well, why don't you run one in here in the UK? Like, why aren't we doing it?"
Yeah.
And my mind just exploded with different ideas, and apparently I hadn't even started my pizza by the time everyone else had finished, just because at that point you'd lost me to this idea of running a show by night. So yeah, since then it's always been one to have on the calendar, really. But yeah, it just came from a conversation with some friends, and that was it.
Yeah. I mean, people have been loving it, haven't they? Obviously, it's the first one in the UK, and it seems to have taken off. I loved it. It was great. Bit strange running in a final an hour past my bedtime, but it was a great experience.
It is quite funny. I think just giving people a totally new outlook on agility, which is by night. I know we train our dogs under floodlights a lot of the time anyway, particularly during the winter months. But definitely, it's I think one that it's becoming a highlight on people's calendars, really. And it's super good that it can be over the bank holiday weekend. So we have 2 nights of agility, and then the Monday sort of day show, which allows people that might not be so keen on the night element of it.
They still get a
come
day
from a normal day show. That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. So how long did it take to start holding IconiX shows after the initial date? So this is kind of all of them, because obviously you've got the night one, the day one, and then 0 degrees as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so there's sort of three prongs to the fork, really. So yeah, we've got 0 degrees, which is our winter series events. We've got the by night, and then we've got IconiX, the UK series.
That's it,
So yeah, I think the first idea came back sort of during that conversation. So the first show is going to be held in 2020.
Okay.
The by night show. Mm-hmm. And I think when we first started discussing it, I think I mean, most days there was something to talk about or think about, or already, I think at that point as well, I wasn't even a registered like limited club. So even that process needed to take place before I could even consider running the show, or at least the logistics of the actual event. So most weeks, some time was taken up thinking about, you know, the paperwork side of things. And then from a totally new, someone who was totally a beginner to all, it's you know, how do you create event, you know, sponsors, judges, venue, you know, all these bigger sort of things you have to tackle. It really meant that, you know, from the end of sort of mid to late end of 2019, really, it was sort of a full go. You know, even the marketing things to try and get people engaged and embracing the idea. So yeah, I mean, the show in January, in August 2020 was obviously cancelled because of COVID. So it was actually nearly a year. Yeah, nearly 2 years before we even actually ran a show. So it was actually 2 years before we even really got going with it. But I think that time allowed us to really think about IconiX as a business, a full business, and add in those other aspects to it. So make the series part of the show schedule, the event schedule, as well as the by night competition.
So the night idea came first, then, and then you sort of added the heats and the 0 degrees.
That's right.
So
that was the original idea, and then we were like, well, hold on a minute. If people seem to like the idea of it, and I think some of the other questions you sent me, I think we might answer them later on as to the other reasons why. But that came first, and everything was sort of formed around that.
Yeah, I guess you've kind of built it into like its own brand as well.
Exactly. So I think it was weird to hard to get my head around the fact that it was becoming like a business for us and Ellen as well, and it was trying to from particularly in the days and ages even pre-COVID, but we know the impact on marketing and social media.
Yes, definitely.
And I think what agility people had been used to, you know, seeing or not seeing online in terms of marketing, and it was trying to engage and capture the minds of as many people as possible to these new ideas. So it was trying to create this very unique brand and make sure it comes across as a professional dog show event. And I think we are getting to that point, or I feel as though we're nearly there.
Absolutely,
we're nearly there.
And I suppose you've got to think about, you know, venues as far as like camping, day parking, little things like that that a lot of people probably don't even, you know, think about goes into it. You've got to literally consider everything.
Exactly, and I think I'm someone who always runs before I can walk. So I was already when we had to move away from the venue for the or when we had anticipated entries that were quite large for the 2020 show, or at least the interest, we thought actually this could be bigger than this venue. So already I was looking for venues around here, because, you know, here in Oxford, well, Banbury, but Norfolk was quite central to England at least. And it was looking for something that I had these big ideas, and as I said, sometimes I get carried away, but I wanted something that could make a bit of a statement and be somewhere that people would remember coming to. And it's just perfect that the Polo Club is 20 minutes down the road, really.
It's perfect being central as well, because obviously I'm a little bit north of, you know, the Midlands. If you get a show that's like right down south, it's like 4 hours away. So if you're in the middle, that most people can sort of, you know, muster up the travel.
Absolutely. And I think it's easy to forget that, you know, even the whole calendar is stacked with so many qualifiers and for so many events. And that's, I think, one thing in the UK we are really good at is we have so many different finals and qualifiers and things. But the one thing that still sticks out, even when people have been doing polls and posts recently on Facebook, the travel thing is still quite a key impact on the decision making of whether someone travels or goes to a show or not. And even people that came to our January show last weekend, they would have to travel 30 minutes further south to get to Dallas, and for them that's just a bit too much.
Yeah, especially with the cost of petrol and stuff at the moment as well.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think there's a number of factors that sort of play into your hands, but I think there's a lot that we can be grateful for in that where we particularly when you're running a show, you don't want to have to travel hours and hours to not only set up the show but then run the show and then come home. So
yeah, definitely.
And we're super lucky that we live in a very generally a rural area with lots of villages and small towns, and you get these polo clubs and really good facilities nearby. So we took advantage of that.
I mean, I spoke to a few people that said they travel quite far for IconiX because of the courses.
Yeah.
Because obviously the courses, especially at the polo club, bigger, wider, more fast, stuff like that. And I think people really value that. So people, I've spoke to people who do travel quite far for that as opposed to some other shows because of that element that other shows almost don't give. So
yeah, I think that's a good point, because I think within that branding point of view, it's not just how you brand the name of the show, but it's the whole culture of what you're trying to represent, like the ethos of the brand.
Definitely.
And we'll talk about sponsors a bit later, but that's for sure one of it is that we have people now talking about IconiX for why it maybe does things a bit differently and what they really enjoy about that. And I just spent 2 days on a handling camp with a lady who I've never met before, but she came at the weekend and she just said that, and I hear this a lot about how their dogs behave differently in a positive way.
Yeah,
they're just a lot more confident. And I think dogs sometimes you only ever see one sort of side of your dog if you go to a certain type of event for the
100%.
dog's career, and these people are just trying IconiX out because of what they've heard. All of a sudden their dogs are behaving differently. They're happier. They're moving quicker. They're more focused because they're not just always sort of battling maybe around a bit of a tighter arena. They have chance to really, we say the word open up, and they really are generally enjoying themselves.
Arrow definitely.
And I think that's something that I didn't really anticipate or account for, but I've heard more and more stories about it. And I think that makes me really proud about, these people that are having this new perspective on what agility could be like, and what IconiX as a brand represents.
Yeah, 100%. So what would you say your favourite part of being a show manager is?
So I'm quite a people person.
Yes.
So I love walking around the rings to both see how all the rings are running, but also to sort of mingle with the competitors, and it's just so. I'm so proud, and it fills me with lots of gratitude that people are just happy and enjoying themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
And want to be there, because at the end of the day, they're my clients, they're my customers.
Yeah.
And so if they're not happy, then I'm not happy. And to see them having a good time and really enjoying themselves, I think that's probably the most fulfilling part, and the favourite part, that, and also being bossed around by two women that basically run the show for me, which is my wife and Jen Slade, who's the show secretary. Of course, I enjoy that too. But I think it's just to see how people genuinely enjoy it, and people just that I've never met before come out of their way. They know me, but I don't know them, and they just talk to me and be like, "I can't believe we're here, and we'll be coming back." And I forget that every show that now takes place, there's still new people that are coming.
Yes, definitely.
And so those conversations are reoccurring, and I forget that oh my God, it's not the same people coming to each show. The entries are getting bigger, and within that, there's people that have never come before.
Yeah, it's growing all the time, isn't it? And I suppose you're kind of the face of the brand as well, so I think people probably enjoy and value that sort of, mixing with you at the show, seeing you around, stuff like that, instead of you just always being in the background, doing the admin bits. It's nice that you actually interact with everyone.
When I start thinking about these shows, and also this thinking about these roles, which is these show secretaries and your show managers and things like this. Ellen is very much she is really good with coordinating the logistics of the helpers, and just generally a bit more ring management with making sure the rings flow well and they've got enough helpers, and I really feel that there's this personal touch
Yes, definitely.
Like we directly engage with the people that help on the rings. We directly engage with our ring managers, our scribes, and the customers themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
And maybe because of the kennel club, the qualify shows, the club shows, it's more like reciprocal ring parties. So there's a bit more of an expectation, but in a good way. We do this for you and we do that for you.
Yeah, 100%.
But I think we've even gone. I remember one of the shows last year, Ellen was walking around with like slices of cake in her hand, and just going around to each of the rings, and people just couldn't quite believe that we sort of existed, like you said, because we can easily get bogged down in the office. But
definitely.
That's not how I manage people, and that's not how I manage my shows. I want to be I don't want to be that, hey, this is me, but I want to make sure people are having a good time.
Yeah.
And if that means I have to talk to people, then that's perfect for me.
Oh yeah, and you enjoy that anyway, I suppose. Well,
exactly.
I'd definitely come back if there was cake involved. So.
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's always good. Agility people love cake.
Yeah.
So on the other end of that, then, what is your least favourite part, or like the hardest part of being a show manager? And I suppose it's a hard question when you do love it, but is there an element that you think, oh, this is tough, or kind of don't enjoy this? Or...
It's a good question. And generally, when I first thought about this question, I thought, but I love it all.
Yeah.
And I think one thing which you can never, and it will always happen, is that you'll always run into a problem, or something will always happen that you haven't accommodated for, or you weren't expecting. So without going into too much, like delve in too much, but like we had some lighting problems at the August show, by night show last year.
Okay.
So a number of your hours is consumed by one specific task.
Yeah.
And so this is another reason why I'm super grateful that we have such willing people to help, because I have to deal with a mini crisis and let the show run itself a little bit.
Yeah, that
really
takes all your energy.
So I think that, that's just one example. But I think when something you can't you can't accommodate for, or you can't prepare for, consumes maybe a little bit more of your time, and in some cases it could turn out to be quite a big problem.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's nothing enjoyable about that.
No, stressful as well.
And I think, and I think that's when I think you need people around you that are too quite rational and are able to, people you trust to work through with it.
Yeah.
Because as you said, I'm the face of it, but I'm one of many pieces of a jigsaw puzzle which make the shows happen.
Yeah.
And I'm super grateful for that. And people that have, like Jen and Ellen, the people that see things from maybe a different perspective as I do, and particularly Jen, who runs big shows. So to have those people on board, particularly when things don't go quite right.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the least favourite part, is when you find yourself being consumed by one thing in particular that is quite problematic, and it pulls you away from other as important things.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that you've got that team there. You're kind of a little team there, helping each other out when it goes wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of problem solving involved, but it's always better when there's a few of you.
Exactly, and I think sometimes, I think we've been very good at, Jen deals with a lot of administrative problems and things with the tablets. Ellen is more one of those people that maybe go directly, we go to and ask out with show, like ring logistics. We've had head judges, so if there's problems with course design, or which there never has been, but if there's query regulations, rather than just expect 4 people to know, or one person to know everything, or 2 or 3 people to know everything. People are dedicated their specific roles, and then we leave that with them, and then we talk back as a team. And I think I'm super proud from that point of view, the people we have that are experienced in their areas, or at least learning to be more experienced in their areas, that we have and we can trust to go to with specific queries and problems.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So what were your main aims for IconiX? Do you think you've achieved them? And is the show where you want it to be? So there's a few questions within this question.
Yeah, sure. So what are your main aims? So going back to, I'll try not to blabber because I could talk about this one all day, but going back to what I said at the start about traveling quite a lot to judge and host seminars. I've always just given or had a different perspective and feel and attitude about shows abroad. There's a lot more relaxed vibe. Obviously, the course design's slightly different. They're in a lot of indoor arenas. Typically less competitors, which is always helpful in terms of, managing the event. But I wanted to offer more people in this country a perspective on what happens to the rest of the world, because although we founded agility, I do think maybe other countries have progressed slightly quicker than us in terms of the future development of the sport. So I was like, well, I get these opportunities to judge at these events and be part of this. Can I bring this back and offer this to people in the UK? So the aim really was to offer this new perspective and idea on how agility could be in the UK, really. And I'm not saying that what it was not okay, but everything always changes and develops and moves on.
Always be better,
and having spent a lot of time not competing when I went to university, and my old dog Chester had retired, and I was judging a lot, I was able to spend more time being more aware of how shows were ran, and I felt as though there was a market for this sort of different type of agility. And what I mean by that, for anyone that might ask, is a few shows have already done it, but multiple international judges at a competition, dimensions that reflect ring dimensions that reflect that of international competitions, that offers a new perspective in course design. The equipment thing, which I think these days is a more buzzword, offers safer equipment and course design that I feel reflects the future of agility. And the fact that I was able to travel, it means I met a lot of people and made some friends, and a lot of those were people that I judged with. So I was able to then sort of say, look, if I'm coming over for you, can you come and judge for me? So I think that was the main aim there, was really give this new perspective. Do I think we've achieved them? I think we're getting there.
Yes, definitely.
I think one of the things I really love is that we're making people ask the question why. So maybe they're going to a different show, whether that's a business or a KC, like a club show, and we're getting people to ask themselves why is it done this way, and why is maybe Neil doing it that way? So it's that perspective thing, really, and it's all positive things. It's not to. I'm not here to, sort of say that I'm doing things any better, but it's the perspective thing that we wanted to drive home with people.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we're getting there. I think there's a few more things that we've just done a post this morning about maybe offering a new style final. We're always trying to evolve, even ourselves. So so I think with that sort of answers itself, is that I think we're getting there. The more conversations I have with people, like some people, it was their second ever show and it was an IconiX show, and based on what they had or how they were training their dog, or the first show they went to, they felt like it was a new perspective.
Definitely, I think you've definitely achieved that perspective there, 100%.
Okay, that's good, and that's good, and thank you for that. And I think we always want to keep pushing to offer people something a little bit different. So so within the question, do you think I've achieved them? We're nearly there.
I mean, you never kind of want to say, "Oh yes, I've achieved it. That's it." Do you get what I mean? Do you? You kind of want to.
Exactly.
That's never the case,
and
I suppose.
But I think from where I was with if I was to look back, I think this is another question, but 2 or 3 years ago, my ideas about where I wanted to be, I would say that they really haven't changed. The ideas are generally the same. We're still just striving to get there. And is the show where you want it to be? I'd probably say again, nearly.
You're on the way almost.
I think I don't think they're quite there yet. I don't even think every year on year we debrief and I think what's really exciting now is we deal with. I don't work with a lot of different companies from a sponsorship point of view. So I think this is where I'm beginning to have a bit more of an idea of what I would like to do, and that is that I'm very picky about who I work with.
Yes.
So you'll probably be aware from last year I worked with Amtanol, and beginning of this year work with Amtanol, which is a joint supplement company. I work with MimSafe, which is a dog crate manufacturer. As just two examples. We're hopefully working with a dog food company from this year as well. And I think what we're getting, a stage we're getting to now, and I think this is really, really exciting, is that not only are we there to offer people a new perspective on course design and agility in the UK, but we're also, I feel like it would be wrong of me to not use this hopefully new platform and awareness and exposure to educate, or at least give people or offer people like ideas on how to best travel their dogs, the best supplements to give their dogs.
Yeah, all the little things that go in.
Sorry?
It's all the little things that go in, again, to making a good agility
dog
so, and partnership that people
provide
might not
people
think
with
about.
Education.
Definitely.
So I think we're hopefully planning this year on having a few like presentations from Amtanol and the other companies there, just to allow people to really understand why it's not just about money.
Yeah,
100%. I really, if one person that didn't know before decided that actually they want to work with or give their dog a joint supplement because it's been clinically proven to reduce pain and inflammation and improve longevity within the sport. If one person decides to do that, then that genuinely I feel like I've done something and I've done enough.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think now this is where these the influence may well happen, and this isn't coming from me, but other people have spoken to me about this and how IconiX can be this platform for other initiatives.
Definitely.
Which is super exciting and something I could never have accommodated for when I started. So I think that's in terms of where we want them to be. The shows are getting there, but I think this is something that I'm going to be prioritising more in the next 12, 18 months.
Yeah, so it's not just about the show. With. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Right, so this one is more on judging. So how do you choose your judges for the show, and what do you look for in a judge? So obviously you've got to make that decision, who's going to judge what, stuff like that. So what goes into that process? So,
I mean, it's... We're very lucky that we have a huge pool of judges here in the UK, because we need so many judges. So I think variety is definitely the spice of life, and I think I look for judges that offer that. Just going to the international judges first, as I sort of mentioned, it's sort of reciprocal. So I'm very lucky that I get invited to some places. I go out to the Hungary a number of times, at least once a year, really, to Tamas Traj. He's probably one of the biggest names that people sort of know. So he comes for me sort of most years. So I look for judges that I think will offer that real perspective of international agility and the future of international agility. And then here in the UK, I think because the whole idea of these bigger rings and the style of course design, which was where people are more popular to see, I think that for me is where I try and draw my eyes when I'm looking at course design and the judges that I like to pick. I think first and foremost, believe it or not, I just want someone who's willing to have a good time.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And that's again something why I'm super lucky, is that I can go away and you may not really know these people or know much about them, but you're just there to have a good time, have a few drinks together, but also just enjoy each other's company. And I want the same for IconiX, because that's the sort of
that's the vibe,
the brand we're trying to the vibe of the brand we're trying to build. So people that are willing to have a good time, and I think we're looking for people that I feel offer the style of courses and the buzzwords like safe and flowing but it's using that within the space they've been offered at an IconiX event, and it's not easy. And I think what we're very lucky now is that we're having a lot more people that are experienced, or at least have been in agility for a while, but not necessarily qualified judges, that are now doing their judges courses and the judges course, and now they're willing to judge, and therefore they have got a super cool idea of what course design is and what they expect, and people that are maybe looking a bit more to the future. So, in the first years, I was really lucky that I had a number of judges that had been around for years that I could turn to and come and judge for me. And I think I'm lucky that they said yes. They who knew I was, and I'm super grateful for that. And as we now look for new judges, so people always get a different variety and of course from different judges. I think it's super good that we look for those that are willing to embrace the challenge of a 25 by 40 ring size and offer modern day skills and designs that I think people would appreciate seeing.
Yeah, because there's a lot at the moment in there, a lot of talk about course design, safety, equipment, all this sort of thing, online, and you hear a lot about it. So I suppose you have to do the research, look at what people's courses are like and try and make it something that people will sort of appreciate. But
absolutely, and I think looking back at when I started judging, particularly internationally, I was given opportunities to judge a couple of finals, which I've given the lineup of judges. I was like, I'm super surprised I even got asked to do that. And it's given people these opportunities. So, we have now got, we've got a couple of younger judges for this year. And when I say young, I mean both in terms of number of years judging, but also younger people, which I think is super important. And I think people deserve these opportunities. And I'm, rather than now just think about giving people, a show that the course is always going to be good. I think what I mean by that is I want people to see that there is younger people that have super good ideas and like perceptions of course design, and I want people to see that it's not just we've got a lot of judges that have been around for a number of years, which is great, but there's also these really cool number of younger judges or judges that have not been judging for long that can offer just as much.
I mean, that's the only way they're going to grow, isn't it?
Sorry?
That's the only way they're going to grow as a judge and learn more if they get the chances to try, and so I think that
and I'm super happy that more people in this country have that are good course designers and trainers are now coming forward as judges as well. So it's really, really exciting time.
So do you always make sure you have at least one international judge at every show to get that? Instead of just
so now I mean basically what happened was again something I couldn't anticipate, but people were sort of unhappy when they only got one course from an international judge per weekend. So, Jen, bless her, Jen does my the ring plan for us. She spends hours and hours on it, and obviously you can't please everyone. And I think it's always a battle to make it fit with clashes and number of dogs and stuff. But that's why we said, well, do you know what? We had 2 last year. Let's go to 3. Yeah. Because then, it's one of the draws. I think we can then work with a smaller amount of UK judges and therefore I can support them more if they need it, and then we can just rely on the international judges that we know are good and established to do their bit.
Good little strategy there.
And and I think people ask and they've got so each weekend we've got 3 scheduled international judges for this year. I think I said on the post, so one of them is a world championship judge from this year, one of them is an EO judge from this year.
Oh wow.
And another three have formally judged the world championship. So
very exciting.
Yes, very, very exciting.
Awesome.
Very exciting.
So the next one is, now I don't know how you take this, I suppose you could take it in a few ways, but how do you think the continuing development of the sport will impact what shows look like in the future?
So, yes, a good question. This is a really, really good question. So, I think when we think about people, a lot more people now vote with their feet. So they will be more. They'll choose venues that offer better or larger ring sizes rather than maybe shows that have more rings in smaller areas.
Yes.
I think people will. They choose shows that offer or more guaranteed better course design and show management and even now equipment is a buzzword as well. Hugely, equipment that they feel is safer for their dogs. So I do believe, and we have seen pre-COVID, but also now more post-COVID, we have more businesses running shows. That has its pros and its cons, but I do feel as though that is how agility will we will be dominated by in the future, is more individuals or businesses running shows. I think there's a number of reasons for that. I feel as though a lot of clubs are, since COVID, I think a lot of clubs have unfortunately lost a lot of their members. Maybe some people that did it maybe more casually, or the dogs got a bit older now, or they've just found other interests because of COVID. And therefore the club numbers are less, and therefore they haven't got the capacity to run as big a show as they had done. I think
that happened. One of the first shows I ever went to with my first dog, Earl, I went to that for years, and then COVID happened, and then they just never brought it back after COVID. So I think that definitely did affect a lot of, clubs, and it was a smaller sort of club. It was KC, but, I think that has affected a few clubs. Since COVID, I've seen clubs before COVID sort of fall off a bit, not come back, but then new ones also come and sort of take over. So I've definitely noticed that since COVID.
I think definitely COVID has been unfortunate for some clubs. So I really feel as though because of where we're coming now, we still have a large pool of people that just do agility for fun. But now we have this small percentage in the bigger picture, but a small percentage of people that do it full time, and they take it very seriously, and they'll travel to compete. And then we've got, I reckon, a pool of people just underneath that do take it seriously. They still might have another job, but they want to compete for international agility. And this is a large population of people that are more aware of, the shows they go to and the courses they get and the judges they get. So I feel as though there will be a time when agility may split in two.
Yes, yeah.
I think agility will see a more grassroots sort of being facilitated. How that looks like, I don't know. But I think there's a lot to consider within that. Within qualifiers and for championship and a lot of other factors which are quite complex. And I think because of the development of course design and equipment safety and venues, I think we will see people choose to do some shows more than others, and that may well have an impact on the shows that currently exist, whether they're KC club shows or not. So I do feel as though because of that and how people want to see agility progress, you will have people that are just happy with how it is, and I think that's fair enough, and I think that's why, to accommodate both, we may have to think about this split. But the ramifications of that and how we get to that point are quite complex. That's quite heavy. Definitely. That's quite a heavy conversation.
It's interesting, isn't it? Though.
People are just are willing to not enter a show because they're aware of what it was like last year, or that they feel as though it accommodates a certain level of agility, which again is not a bad thing.
Definitely. And everyone has different standards of it, don't they? That's what.
Exactly. And I think we have to respect that for sure. But I think it's okay that we also want to progress.
Absolutely.
And keep developing from the other end as well.
Yeah. No. Definitely. 100%. So off the back of that, how do you think that we should continue to grow our sport?
So I think sitting on two committees in the Kennel Club, the Activities Committee and the ALC, I think we're now in a really important, really sort of exciting phase where a lot of people have ideas and opinions and opportunities for the sport to grow and develop. I think we need to consider evidence base in all this. So I think
definitely.
We're very lucky that globally there's a lot of evidence of how different things have occurred. So let's take, for example, let's look at safety as one element of it. Some countries have decided to lower the A-frame apex so the dogs aren't hitting at such an angle.
All right.
So, in a lot of countries are now they're dominated by soft line contacts, the stuff that, a Gala can have. Um, and I think we have to utilise that evidence base of what we know from abroad to help educate and inform us on our decisions in this country. So,
definitely.
I think it does tie into the question before, like the continuing development.
Does, yeah.
I think sort of thinking about IconiX and all this as well is that I think people feel a bit isolated, or they have. We've heard stories of people say, "Well, IconiX is too like elitist, and really? We only cater for like the professionals." But actually, our grade 1 to 3 dogs have more finals than our 4 to 7 dogs across the whole season.
Definitely.
And it's quite, I totally appreciate. I think because of the professional sort of front we put on, and we want to offer people like a professional dog show. I think that puts people off because it's not what they're used to.
Yeah.
But I think within that, I think we need to be able to. It's going to grow in 2 different ways. So I think we need to establish this maybe grassroots where people are accommodated for, but we're still with everything in mind from safety and venue and course design. But we also appreciate that that we really want to start pushing the limits of what our handlers and dogs are capable of at a more advanced level as well.
Definitely.
I think I do feel as though it's a shame we have lost a lot of people. So I would like to see, I'd like to see more numbers or the numbers of dogs in agility grow again. And I feel as though that takes some support from the Kennel Club, which they are looking into.
Yeah, 100%.
In terms of how we engage these people in our sport. And I think there's a number of things that can be done and should be done from an agility perspective. I think from the let's look how the grading system and the general management of shows and how they're put on is done or is established is something that I think will help go a long way to bring back the numbers which we used to have, in my opinion.
Yeah. So the growth, you think, is probably more in the hands of sort of the show managers and organisers than the actual competitors almost, you know what I mean, to sort of bring that level of agility.
We are. Yeah, we're in charge of what people see and what people experience and what people do. And I think in turn that is maybe obviously governed by the Kennel Club. And I think hand in hand they go very much so. So I think we need to be aware that we need to accommodate everybody within this. But be mindful of where we're going in terms of sport development anyway, with safety and course design and all those bits we've spoken about. So very complex question.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's I think we'll get there.
Yeah.
I think we'll get there.
Yeah, and it's growing it for the people that sort of want it to progress while, keeping it at a level that anyone can enjoy as well. Exactly. So it is very difficult.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly. Yeah.
Again, this next question could kind of come off the back of the other one again, but what is your favourite UK show that isn't IconiX? Obviously, IconiX comes first, but if you had to choose another show, and this is quite, a personal question, and I bet a lot of people have different favourite shows, but for you, what show do you think best represents agility?
So, I think, given that maybe I look at it from purely from more angles, not just purely from the agility itself, but but also the atmosphere it creates and how I think the ideas they've had in running these events. I really like Hinckley.
Oh yes,
yeah. So Hinckley is obviously it's only 5 or 6 rings, I think, 5 or 6 rings. But they make a point of, their champ finals being at the end of the day in 1 ring.
Yeah.
And I think I from what I remember from agility when I was younger, I missed that.
Yeah. Okay.
I think there's so much more emphasis on getting the job done as opposed to doing it properly. And what I mean by that is maybe sometimes entry levels are so high or classes offered are so high. There's loads of classes in each ring. Whereas if you look at a show like Hinckley, okay, it's a shame for the grade 1 to 2 dogs. but they have 5 rings. It's on obviously good, well-maintained land.
Yeah.
There's good organisation. They've got super, Von and Steve and the whole of the Hinckley team. They're people that know what they're doing. And yeah, I just always have fond memories of both judging there. I think I still remember. I remember judging like a grade 6, 7 for them there, and I really liked the course, and I remember it quite well.
Yeah, I remember going. I went a few times before COVID. I went there for like maybe 3 years while I was part of the junior GB team. When you were a part of that as well. And I remember we had a few training days with the team at the end of that show. So it was held at the show, but like in the evening after the champ final. And I remember one year it was the worst sunburn I'd ever got at that show. But it was a lovely day. Really? I just remember it, really good show. Yeah. But yeah, that stands out to me for that reason.
I think it's in June. It's in June, so it's always a good time of year for a show because of the weather normally. Yeah, I just like the atmosphere they produce. I like, they are mindful, maybe, or they can be because of the lack of the less rings, but they're going to be a bit more mindful about, the judges they choose. They have quite a good qualifiers there. So, yeah, I think I have generally enjoyed that show. Is one that sort of stands out for me.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I definitely do enjoy a Hinckley show as well. So, what would you say? How intensive is the process of developing your own show? And what steps does it involve?
So I think about the IconiX shows every single day of my life.
Yeah.
So whether that is an email I have to send, whether that's just like to organise from a marketing point of view with Kat at Dino Bark to a sponsor email, to a contract I've got to send out, to a judge that I've got a message, to like being out and about and on my phone having an idea about how to run the series or a new idea I've got to write it down on my phone.
So it's all consuming.
It is, yeah. And I think if that's the point, I think that's something that I really would like, would drill home is that I absolutely love it, but it's quite intensive. I
suppose you've got to love it to put all that into it as well. Do you get what I mean? Like if you don't love it, you're not going to want to spend every day working on it and stuff. So
exactly, and I think where maybe more show committees have different people allocated to some tasks. I think the fact that I've taken this all on, and bless Ellen, she's come along for the ride, and I've sort of asked her a lot of her help when she's still trying to do her full-time job. It makes things harder, but I think also sometimes to have people, like a small group of people that are like-minded, it does make these things a bit easier. But definitely. I think I'm really bad with planning, and I have all these ideas, but I'm not good at actually putting them down on paper or finding a process of doing them. So it's quite an intensive process. So, you straight away, from thinking of the venue to sorting out the dates to the structure of how you want to run the show, what you want to include, and overall making sure people are going to have a really, really good time is super important. And I think, even the little things that come down to it, like budget, and what you can afford at the end of the day, with ever increasing prices, and are you limited by that? And we are, and it's not like a forever filling pot of money. I think you need to be quite mindful of the impact of your ideas and the things you like to do.
Well, it's making it the best, from with what you've got, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, and so I think for any of those that might be looking to start running their own shows, I think for sure make sure that you are, it'd be a warning that it's not easy.
No, definitely not.
But it's super, super fun, and I think just make sure if you're wanting to run it as a Kennel Club licensed event, which I think always has its draws, like people are going to more likely to come because it's a KC show with progression, and but make sure you follow. Or you're aware of the steps involved with a kennel club. So that is being a registered club, paying for your licenses, those small things, making sure, even things down to risk assessments. And
safety stuff.
things which still do frustrate me. I will admit, having to print out the local, the nearest vet's location. I think there is some things that I think that we still need to develop, and that is one thing. We don't need to waste paper on printing out and and laminating where the local vet is. It's on the schedule, and we can tell people. But anyway, beside the point. But
I suppose you'd Google it, wouldn't you, if you needed one?
Pardon?
I suppose you'd Google one if you needed one, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we'd sort of duplicate this information. But yeah, so so they're the initial steps, and then you want to make sure that I think one of the big things, from particularly a venue point of view, is communication. So dogs, particularly dog sports and agility, a lot of venues aren't used to having agility events there. So the dog thing is sometimes quite interesting or difficult subject to approach with them.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's just making sure you're very clear with how the event is going to run, what it's likely to look like, any hidden fees. So like, we have to consider LSAM points, toilets, like general waste. Like, are you going to pay for skips to come on site, or do you have to? And do they accept dog poo?
Yeah,
all these really boring jobs about running a show.
Yeah.
Like they've got to be done, and someone's got to do them.
Yeah.
And even things down to the trophy design, and do you just want a piece of glass, or we go for wooden trophies because we like to do our bit for the environment, and it's off reclaimed or like scraps of other pieces of wood from the company we use, and if people don't like them, they can either give them back or they can throw them, they can recycle them.
Yeah, exactly.
So sustainability comes into it as well. So I mean, I hope I haven't put anyone off that might be listening and thinking, oh my god, I want to do a show, but they're just things that really you have to be mindful of and consider.
Yeah, well, it's better to know all these things than go in thinking that it's easy and then realise too late you're like, oh no.
But even things down to like your feeding your helpers and all those little smaller jobs really. But yeah, I think particularly into the last 2 weeks are when things get super interesting, and also things that like getting everything together and prepared and ready for the show, making sure you've got everything you need, from measuring wheels to the right books, like the Kennel Club books. But it starts. I'm planning 2025 now with my equipment suppliers, and even looking to the future of our trophies and what we want to do, and because you always will have new ideas, and it's really important to explore those ideas.
Yeah,
and don't be afraid to talk or mention them or talk to somebody about those ideas, because like part of your team or something, because I think it's super important. And sometimes I've definitely been outvoted on ideas that I probably think would work.
But at least you got it out of your system.
Exactly.
Otherwise you'd never know, would you?
Ellen is definitely the rational brain in a lot of these conversations, and you've just seen we've announced that we're doing an EO style team final at the May event now, which exciting. That's my new little baby.
Yeah, latest
I'm
idea.
super excited by it. Oh, sorry, I think my thing's just come up. It's my own little sort of baby, but Ellen's like, okay, it's a cool idea, and yeah, I think it's great to do, but we need to think about it as a process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of to drive home the sort of last point is people need to understand what you're trying to do.
Yes. 100%.
Because the last thing you want, and I've experienced this myself, is if you're trying to do a specific event or a final, and people at the best of times like will look at a schedule but not really take notice of it. They'll just look at where the postcode is of the show, how much are the entries, and like how many classes are on offer, basically.
Yeah, how early they have to get up in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then a lot of people fail to look at the nooks and crannies of like maybe how an event format works, if it's a series event or like it's a qualification process. So whatever you're trying to do, make sure it's as black as white for people. It's black and white for people to understand.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that was a long one. Yeah, go number 11.
So, number 11, what do you think we still need to get better at as a sporting community in the UK? So, I suppose in the UK as opposed to international and stuff like that.
I think we need to listen to one another and respect people's opinions, one another's opinions a bit more, because it's okay to disagree with somebody who might have an idea that you don't like. And let's look at judging in particular. I really, even happens this year, last year, every year, judges don't talk enough. and judges are too afraid or too proud, or I don't know what it is, of having conversations with another where they discuss their course designs or give critical feedback, or they're not open. They believe as though if this is whatever they've designed is great. And I think regardless of personal characters, and who they what that means, I think the bigger picture or the bigger impact it has is on agility as a whole.
Yes, definitely.
So we've started. There's our initiative called Love the Lines that I've done with Dave and Dan and Martin and Becky Hosden. And one of the things and one of the key points I draw home from that is talk to one another. You must be able to be receptive to people giving you an opinion, that if you don't like it, you tell them you don't like it, but actually understanding that people are generally, they want to learn themselves. They want to understand your perspective on things. And
taking that constructive criticism as well, I suppose, is helpful from other people that know what they're talking about as well.
Yeah, they don't go to, I hope they don't, but I think most people don't go to train with a person or their local club and get taught by somebody and just disagree with that.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
defeats the object.
Nobody knows everything.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I think really, while it might be like a boring answer, I genuinely feel as though we need to be a bit more understanding and respectful of one another, and how some people are only in it for the grassroots, having a bit of fun, but other people are also there to push the limits of them and their dogs. And I think that's both are okay. So yeah, being a bit more kind and understanding, I think, is of people's specific situations is something that I really would like
definitely
to see more of.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So did you always aspire to run your own show when you were a YKC member? Because obviously you've been in agility for so long. Was it... So you never thought of that when you were younger, no?
No, never. I was just obsessed with running Chester.
Yeah.
Really, just not a Scooby-Doo. Yeah. I didn't have any idea or any inclination, or I didn't... Not like inclination, but no one ever asked me the question. It was only when...
I suppose you wouldn't think of it, would you, at that point?
No, I just think I was just like... I couldn't even really tell you the moment now. I just thought, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah,
and that was only when I was mid-20s. So no, I didn't even think about it. No, I just cared about running around the ring and winning as much as I could.
Yeah, I suppose that's a lot of young people's opinions on it. But
yeah.
How old were you then when you first got into agility?
I'm 29 now.
Okay.
So yeah, I did agility I've been doing agility since I was 11, so not as long as some of the juniors that are through, but I still remember YKC camps and things where you do your training, but definitely not thinking about shows at that point.
I mean, I was 11 when I first started competing, because I got my first dog when I was 8, and then I actually just started doing obedience with him, like normal dog training, and my club was like, "Oh, try agility," and then I was 11 when I first competed as well. Yeah. So that's super interesting, but never anything about running a show till recently.
Start running your own show, Summer.
The Paws in Pursuit show.
Yeah.
Right. So, what advice would you give your younger self about judging when you first started to do so? So this is more the judging side of it than the actual show side of it, but I suppose running a show and judging kind of goes hand in hand to some extent.
Yeah. This is a really good question. What would you advise to give your younger self about judging? So looking back, if I could speak to my younger self now, I would. One thing I feel like I've always done is being a bit ambitious with my course design.
Okay.
So I've always happened in my judging career, but I always feel as though there's always something negative or controversial that someone has to say about my course design, because I think it's too hard, and I've always felt that, and I don't regret that. I still don't regret that to this day.
Yeah, and there's always gonna be some people that don't like it, isn't there? There's never gonna be a course that everyone's like, yes, it's the perfect course. I feel
for sure, exactly, agreed. So I think what I would tell myself if I went back now is I think one thing which I think think all younger people, what this sort of goes back to really is understanding about how dogs move.
Yes.
So being a bit more aware of the implications of course design on our dogs back then.
So lines
and for sure
stuff.
so what I mean by that is the shorter distances that even I used to offer dogs the lines onto contacts, which I'm not saying I was bad at, but the implications on that and the bigger picture on the course design itself and how you place them. The use of the space and understanding how the fact that if you give dogs a bit more room and you use it, the more of the ring, you just by default offer a lot more variety.
Yeah.
And are able to give dogs a bit more room to accelerate, and then and maintain their speed, and therefore there's less risks of this hyperextension and potential bulging discs and longevity of career.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think without overwhelming my younger self, I probably would say just use more of the space you've got.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is a big one.
Is the one thing I think I could say. And then he would ask why, and I'd be like, "Trust me, you wouldn't understand. Just do it."
Yeah, you'll know in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got I'm doing a judging course in March, so
Super.
that's really helpful to think about.
Yeah. And it's really happy. I think people like yourself who are more aware of, or like you get all these different perspectives from dog trainers and show organisers on myself, and I think it's really good that you're trying to build this picture of what you should know and what you want to listen to and take advice from what you don't. So that's really good. I think definitely if I'm talking straight to you now, Summer, be nice and think about using all the space you've got. Give yourself some variety. Don't overuse jumps too often.
Yes, definitely.
Because it might be safe, but it's quite boring.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to offer a number of different skills distributed sort of evenly across the course, I'd say.
Yeah. Awesome.
And good luck in March.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Good.
And as well, going to EOJ for all those years and, seeing international courses from that young age, I think is definitely helpful because I sort of got a basis of what those courses look like when I was younger. So I definitely think that has helped a lot, being in that international space when you're young.
Absolutely. Yeah.
100%.
You are developed. Which one was that question? What we think we need to get better as a sporting community, get people more like people like Summer involved at a younger age.
Yes, definitely.
That's it.
Yeah. I always I always wish I'd found agility even younger so I could have done like unders and stuff like that in YKC.
Yeah.
Like I was literally 11, so it's so young, but still I'm like, I wish I'd found it like 5 years earlier or something like that. But what can you do?
Yeah.
It's just great because I remember when I first started agility, there was like I only did like local-ish shows to start with, so there was only really me that did it as a child. And now it's great to see, like now I'm older, there's just so many young people doing it, like so many like really young people competing. It's just amazing. Yeah,
agreed.
Definitely.
I hope we retain those people as well. I hope that the and I think in a lot of cases, the parents are providing those opportunities, which as you said, I think they are in most cases of what I can see. So
I agree. Yeah, super fun. Hopefully they stay in it. Past 18.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. So if you could go back to the beginning of IconiX, so when you first sort of had the idea, is there anything you wish you knew or would do differently? So this is back to just entirely IconiX related before you developed it.
I think, if you go back to the beginning, so I think in general, as I said, our aims of IconiX as a brand haven't really changed. Like in terms of what we've wanted to, or we would have liked, or the perspective we wanted to provide people with. I think if I could go back now, I would be a lot more better prepared for the smaller details of the financial side of things and the implications of that, and just maybe for me personally the preparedness for the amount of work that needed to go into it. Because I think, admittedly, I spend a lot of time on the road, like traveling, and even when I teach in the UK, obviously it's another day away from home. So I don't put enough time into IconiX than I wish I could.
Yeah.
But I think that might change in the future if IconiX keeps growing and some of the plans we have for them. So I think that might change. But yeah, I think for now it's really just being aware of the amount of time it takes to run a show and do it properly.
Yeah.
And sometimes the week before the show is hell.
Yeah.
Because you all of a sudden you're trying to do the small things which you could have done weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, strategies that I have now, or trying to do better or more of now, and Ellen's been instrumental in helping me with this. But bringing in strategies that mean that you're just better. So I genuinely feel that although it's only a 4-ring show, the entries were quite large for the weekend.
Yes.
But I feel like the days before the show just went a lot differently as to previous shows.
Yeah.
You just know more, and there's nothing better than experience.
Yes,
putting yourself in those situations, and going, crap, maybe I could have done that better, or okay, I could have done that a lot earlier.
Well.
Yeah. So I think plan, having better strategies in place earlier to get things done a bit earlier, to make those 3 or 4 days before the show, although they're never going to be quiet, just not as hectic as I probably have made them.
Yeah. I mean, last week when I was on about doing the podcast last week, I didn't even register that it was the week before the show, and then you were like, it's kind of the week before the show. I was like, oh God, yeah. Maybe do that then.
So 2 years ago I would have said, yeah, that's fine. I can just stop what I'm doing and sit down for an hour and a half and chat with you. But now I'm like, I don't even. Sometimes now I try not to travel abroad the week before the show, just because, if I've got a weekend off at home, or at least in this country, I can do little bits in an evening. And definitely the weeks before the shows are blocked out. I am, as things get better, I do host international trainers that judge for me as well. So again, it does help me plan my time a bit better and earlier, so that they can come and teach for me, but then also I can still get the work done for the show. So yeah, definitely being a bit more mindful about what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Organisation is always helpful.
It is, and I'm not good at it.
I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but just quickly, you said about travelling abroad. Do you travel abroad like very frequently? For agility, like how frequently would you say on average because I see a lot of your posts, you've gone here and there judging for people. Is it a regular occurrence?
At least once a month.
Oh, okay.
At least once a month, sometimes twice a month. So sometimes I'll go just for seminars. So next month I'm traveling to, next month. Well, actually next month is 3 times. So I'm away 2 weekends for judging, and then I'm away in Sweden during the week for teaching.
Oh, wow.
So I think there's a number of, when you go away to judge, you restrict your income anyway, because there's unfortunately not a lot of money in judging. So the trips abroad normally now I tie in judging with seminars because it's worthwhile a day or two.
Yeah, well,
but yeah, I've at least away once a month. And then this year in June, I'm away for the whole of June, going to Singapore and Australia.
Oh, wow. That's so cool that you get to do that, so often.
Yeah, awesome. And I think it's another crazy, another reason why I want to take that leap of faith. Yeah. Because I've who'd have thought that you can travel to Singapore and Australia to do some judging and teaching, and it's just blows my mind a little bit.
Insane,
I'm a bit like imposter syndrome. Like, is this really me?
Pinch me moments all the time.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. So yeah, I think I am. Having now got Hero, which is my young dog. I say young dog, 2.5, and seeing his potential, it has changed my outlook a little bit.
Yeah.
I did see one of your runs. Determined to. Sorry.
I did see one of your runs at the weekend on Saturday with Hero. He's awesome.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Yeah, he's getting there.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I think there's another point.
That kind of brings me to also another tangent from me here, but do you get to run all your... Because I watched you run and I thought, okay, you're running, you're not like in the back managing all the time. So do you still get to do your runs? Or do you only get one run?
At IconiX?
Yeah, at IconiX shows, do you still get to run your dogs as normal? Or do you only get like one run or...
No, so I don't. So from an official point of view, the show manager can't run their dogs.
Oh, okay.
That's coming from a breed point of view. So I don't go down as a show manager. I'm not afraid to share this loophole, because I think it's quite common that people that I still run the show, but for the paperwork, I just don't have my name down. So I get to run. I still get to run my dogs for sure. Sometimes it's rushed. So this weekend in particular was really bad for Hero because the show was quite busy. The help was, we had some really super good helpers that helped for the whole weekend. But like other times we had to be sort of on the hand to help. So I didn't really prepare Hero mentally enough for his runs.
Yeah.
So I do get to run him, but he wasn't in a good position to run. It wasn't really fair on him. But yeah, I mean, I had some success in August last year. I don't know how it happened, but yeah, Hero won the by night final for grade 1 to 3. So and I had no idea that happened. So yeah, I think sometimes you do get to run them, but for us all, it is always hard because our favourite show is the one we have to run.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So
it's don't want to miss out.
So also, genuinely excited to go away this weekend. And just not have to worry about any of that. And just focus on our own dogs.
I remember that actually at the night one. That was crazy. Thinking 1 minute you were commentating like the final I was running in, the 1 to 3, and then like literally 5 minutes later, after I put Arrow away, you were literally running in a final of your own, and someone else commentated it.
I think probably a subliminal sort of like side note that's happened as well is that Hero has taught me more about course design and appreciation for a dog that's super powerful and fast and struggles with slide jumps, or at least it appreciates the bigger courses. So I think maybe, I mean, I didn't have Hero when I first started IconiX, so I can't say Hero was fully to blame for what we've created, but I think it's given me more of an idea about how dogs behave on these larger courses and how nicer it is on their bodies. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm the same with obviously, I had Ethel on the team, my little border terrier, and lines just weren't an issue with her because she had such a short stride. She's not the fastest, so we kind of did better on the awkward courses almost, that because she would get round them. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now I've got Arrow, and he is so he's bigger, his stride is longer, he's faster. And, I have to really take that into account now. So definitely having different dogs teaches you a lot about courses.
Absolutely. It's that educate, so now that will help you without you even knowing it when it comes to course design. After you've done your course, for sure. So, yeah, that's really, really good. And it's good to be aware of that as well.
Definitely. So the next one is, what are your future plans for IconiX? And would you like to expand it in any way? So you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but... is there anything in particular you'd like to focus on?
So yeah, we've had some international competitor interest for coming to the competition. So we have had some international competitions competitors come over. So our next big step is to sort of show more a larger volume of people internationally what IconiX is about, and that's going to start with the Border Collie Classic next year. So we're hosting the Border Collie Classic the week before the European Championships at the same venue. Okay. So that for me is another sort of showcase event. So it won't run, it will obviously be a unique because it's Border Collie Classics, but it will run slightly differently to the other events because I want to make it a bit more of a spectacle. Now, that doesn't mean that it's very different to how it's going to be running from a normal IconiX show. But because of the nature of the standalone event it is, I really want to sort of put IconiX on the map internationally as well. Yes, definitely. So that's our plan for 2024, and from that, I've always had whirling in the back of my mind about some international competition. So hosting IconiX abroad. Oh yes, that'd be great. I think I would love to do it. I think logistically it's going to be another huge challenge, and that would mean expanding the sort of the workforce, so to speak, for IconiX. But it's not the first time it's been done. So I think it's possible from in terms of other companies. So I think it's possible. But yeah, just a lot of thought needs to go into it really, because the original idea of IconiX and the UK series in particular was inspired by an off-road triathlon event where there's different competitions around Europe, and you travel and earn prize money, and I think again, probably going back to that question about the future of our sport, I do feel as though for the top top event and the top level, there needs to be money involved, really.
Yes, 100%.
People dedicate their lives to this, and I feel like they should be rewarded for that, but that's again another sort of topic. But so international competitions in particular. One thing that to bring it sort of back home is we will be slowly or soon we will be registering as a full registered kennel club, because we want to run championship events and other qualifiers at IconiX shows.
Oh, super.
So I think we've got a really good facility to host, the pinnacle of agility in the UK, or what should be seen as a pinnacle of agility in the UK. And so we'd like to, be able to throw our names in the hat as a club to host. But that, at the moment, for those that may be unsure, we're currently a listed status club, so we're just a listed club. So we can't be offered or host any qualifiers for big finals. But as a fully registered club, that's the sort of perk you get. So
that's like Champ Olympia, stuff like that.
Correct. So if you look at like Hinckley, that's a premier show.
Yeah.
And then and a premier and championship show, but some clubs are just a championship show if they've just got champ, or premier if they haven't got champ. So I think that's I think we've done really well, or we have offered. We're offering a really good event for everybody, but I would also like to focus on offering the best in our country, the best possible champ experience.
Yes, no, that'd be
so that's probably our next step. As well as that, I think 0 degrees is now on the map a little bit, but the January show will just taking place. It's probably likely to be a one-off event, and then we're going to look at maybe focusing our attention on the one ring indoor shows that people saw from last November.
Yes.
So a totally different, May is going to be May and August and October, large outdoor events, and then we focus more on our intensive indoor one ring shows, which are more probably in line with what we see internationally, really.
Okay.
I think they're the plans. So definitely a lot to think about in the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I do hope
and
it goes
I'll be
abroad.
interested myself I'd be interested to see what I would have to say if somebody asked me in 5 years' time, what are your plans for the future of IconiX?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure at that point.
We'll have to have another podcast episode like this in 5 years. See what's going on then.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, please do put IconiX abroad. Give me a good reason to go abroad for agility.
Well, yeah.
That'd be great.
I will do my best.
Right, so the last question now we're on. So what advice would you give to someone wanting to develop and run their own show? So again, you've kind of put little bits of this in the whole episode, but to round it up, to summarise, just what would you give?
Take the leap of faith. Because you will always have doubts, but don't let them take over your idea. Like, for sure, it might have influence and you might have to change how you do things, but take the leap of faith and say you're going to do it. Make sure you have the people you want and trust around you for help. So in my case, that is this really good show secretary, Jen, who's, again, is young, but is also super experienced. Have somebody by your side. Like, I'm very lucky that I've got an amazing wife and somebody who will tell me honestly what she thinks about an idea, but is also willing to help and is really good her strength is really good in administrative and preparational tasks. That's a really bad one. I'm not sure that's a word.
I get what you mean.
be prepared to invest a lot of your own spare time in it. So if you're sat at home when you're on your sofa on an evening watching your favourite film on Netflix, those evenings are likely to go. Yeah. Particularly when you're in those first couple of years. So be prepared to lose your Netflix time.
Yeah.
But the last thing is, don't forget your end goal. Don't forget what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And that may change, but always stick to the reasons why you're doing something. Yeah. Because that not only gives you purpose, but it gives you that target. It's an outcome. It's what you can measure your success on.
Yeah. Keeps you on track as well. Makes you...
Exactly.
While you're sat there thinking, I wish I was watching Netflix, remember your why.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Right, well, that is all of the questions.
Super.
That was awesome. Thank you very much for coming on. Yeah, no, that's absolutely perfect, yeah.
thank you for getting me to speak about IconiX, because I just don't, like, I've never spoken about it this much in depth.
Yeah.
And I think, by the way, you're a very good podcaster, because
Thank you.
obviously you're just like, you just allow people to like talk, which is really great.
Yeah.
Without having to, like, you don't intro that much. You're like, no, you've got these questions, which are super good because you've got some structure to it.
Yeah.
And then bang, like, you can you can let the person's brain wander a little bit and just tell them everything they need to know. So yeah, I haven't really ever spoken in depth about IconiX like that before. So thank you very much.
That's all right. Thank you. I bet everyone will love listening to that. Definitely.
Wow, yeah.
So guys, that concludes my conversation with Neil. Thank you, Neil, so much for coming onto the podcast. That was a super enjoyable and interesting episode. I took a lot of value from it, and I know all my listeners will as well. So if you don't already follow Neil and IconiX on social media, go and check them out. You can learn a lot more about the show, and if you've never been to a show before, then I highly recommend them. They are one of my favourite shows, and me and Arrow always love them. So also give me a follow on social media. I'll put all my links here on the YouTube video, and if you're only listening to the audio, I will put all those links in the description box below, so go check those out. I'm very active and post pretty much every single day. And yeah, if you're enjoying the podcast so far, then please leave me a review. That would mean the world to me. And I will speak to you all next Wednesday. Thank you for listening, guys. Bye.